Hey, what is up everyone? Today I'm taking a look at the high-grade Pale Rider Cavalry. And if a box is rocking only one color, that means only one thing: this is a premium Bandai only exclusive. So that means this video right here would not have been possible without those absolutely fantastic people over at BUYEE. So if you do want one of these of your own, or you're looking for some rare or hard to get kits, I guarantee you will find them through BUYEE below. In the description, there's the link. Here we go. So jumping into the overview, and here's absolutely everything that comes in the box. So as well as the high-grade Pale Rider Cavalry, we also have a shield we would have seen with the previous high-grade Pale Riders, a pair of beam sabers, a beam javelin, a beam rifle, once again we would have seen with the other Pale Riders. Next up we've got a couple of alternate hands, which is a left widespread open hand, and opening hatch for on the front of this ride here, which is really cool, and the best thing in the box. And this right here is the composite weapon Shekinah. But anyway, let's check out the high-grade Pale Rider Cavalry itself first. So jump right on into the aesthetics, and this is an absolutely awesome looking kit if you're not aware of one particular thing. First off, I'll mention that this is pretty much the Pale Rider with a Gundam-esque aesthetic. It's got those Gundam-style colors, and something that resembles a V-fin up on its forehead. As for that one thing that if you know about it, this doesn't look so great, and if you don't know about it, it might look okay, well, that is this! Look at that amount of stickers. Once again, just like the Todesritter before it and the two other versions of the Pale Rider, this does have a lot of stickers, and these are kind of half and halved. Half for normal mode and half then are for the Hades mode. So you can divide those stickers by half, but it's still a lot. And we've got a second sheet of stickers primarily for the shield, so there's a lot of color inaccuracy here. So I'm going to throw a side-by-side up right now. Hey, let's just get right into the spin, and I'll throw the side-by-side up there. So anyway, there's that full 360-degree spin of the high-grade Pale Rider Cavalry, and up on the right-hand side there is the original art. Well, that works for proportions and whatnot, and this kit does look very, very nice. It really has captured the look of the Pale Rider and all that crazy paneling all over the place, which makes this such a unique and cool looking suit. But what it doesn't actually show us is how color inaccurate this is, so I'll pop up the actual pictures from Bandai of what this kit should look like. So as you can see, this thing is meant to have a whole lot of different colors on it that it does not. It's meant to be a little bit more patchy with more navy blue on some of the armor parts, and I might as well go through them one by one so you can kind of get an idea of what is missing. On the shoulders we're missing a lot of grey from the venting. On the chest we're missing a lot of white from the upper chest, as well as some of the grey from the sections in the front of the torso. The torso is very color inaccurate. Dropping down to the waist unit then, and we are missing a lot of navy blue on the armored sections of the skirting armor, as well as the grey of the vents. Dropping then down to the legs, and we're missing some grey off the knees, some navy blue off the panel on the front of the shins, a lot of the internal structure of the thrusters on the sides of the legs, and even getting down to the feet, we're missing some grey from inside, deep in there. This really does continue around back. We're missing color of the thrusters, yellow of the venting, and then up on the butt flap we're missing a whole load of navy blue, yellow, and grey. So this is one of the most color inaccurate kits ever. You might as well paint the entire thing from scratch to make this look good. All those stickers would look bad, peel off over time, and just trying to paint the individual bits might get a little bit bothersome. This is a kit I recommend just completely graying over with primer and painting the whole thing. And I don't think I've ever said that before. But once again, that is compared to what it should look like. If you actually take this kit in a vacuum and ignore that sort of aspect, it still looks really cool, especially if you panel lined everything up to highlight all of the paneling, raised parts, and armor detail. The head does look phenomenal now that it's Pale Rider with a V-fin, which is pretty badass. But there is some issues with the plastic on this. The navy blue, as is usually the case with Bandai kits, maybe all kits, marks a lot, and a lot of the knobs aren't hidden that well, especially the ones on the tops of the shoulders. So once again, another reason to paint this kit. It's a super complex design, and it really has that P-Bandai or Gundam Build Fighters / Build Divers issue, where they took a kit that is somewhat plain-ish, jazzed it all up a bit, but just didn't color separate out all the parts. And speaking of jazzing up an older kit, you get a hell of a lot of plastic from some of the older Pale Riders in here. As for what's worth mentioning, we've got a whole bunch of the feet, backpack, and chest of the original Pale Rider kit, and we've got a whole load of the armor parts. That's the rest of the feet, front skirting, rear skirting, arms, legs, head. By the looks of things, you can probably build the whole Pale Rider in the navy blue, red, and white color scheme, but don't quote me on that. We also have some cool thrusters left over on the Sea Runner, which are very useful for customs or throwing onto another kit that you're customizing for some extra thrustage. So now moving on to the size comparisons, and there is the Pale Rider Cavalry side by side with the high-grade Pale Rider Space type. There it is side by side with the high-grade Todesritter, and there is the high-grade Oryx 78-2 Revived Granddaddy Gundam for scale. Next up onto some of the shelves, and there it is side by side with some Build Divers and Build Divers Re-Rising kits. Next up there it is side by side with some main Gundams from some different Gundam series. There it is beside some Universal Century suits from bigger to smaller. And finally there it is down on the dirty Zaku shelf. Whoa, this one's falling over. Get up right there. Alright, there it is, down on the dirty Zaku shelf. There it is right at the Master Grade Ball, and we've got some other Gunpla for size comparison. And finally on the catapult deck of the Argama with some 1/44th scale Zeta Gundam kits. So now moving on to the accessories and jumping back to the beginning of the video, and there is everything that comes in the box. Now let's check it all out one by one. So first up in here we've got a fairly bog standard set of beam sabers with pink beams. As usual, these attach into the hands, the holding style hands we've seen through the whole review so far, and when they're not in use you can just pull out the beams and attach them up here onto the backpack for storage. Next up in here we've got one of the funnest weapons around, which is the Beam Javelin. Basically an extended beam saber with a whole bunch of crackling energy popping out the business end. Attaching this is as simple as attaching the beam sabers, and it can be held two-handed like what you're seeing right here. So next up in here we've got the beam rifle. In order to attach this you need to split the hand in half to attach the handle in, and that is what it looks like attached. We've seen this with previous Pale Riders before, and we've got a moving side up top and a moving handle on the side. Besides that, it's pretty much as plain as a high-grade beam rifle comes, just cast in solid grey. In here we do have an alternate hand, which is a widespread left hand. That's what it looks like. Next up in here we've got the shield. This is exactly the same as what we would have seen with the previous Pale Riders. Attaches onto the forearm like so. And I will mention out of the box this is incredibly color inaccurate. It is just white, but it has some of the oddest stickers ever. I'm not sure if the older Pale Rider kits came with these stickers or not, but these are really thick. So these are referred to as plastic stickers, and they feel like little veneers of plastic for sticking onto the shield. So they are a little bit nicer than standard foil stickers, but I will mention these are extremely high gloss, which means they do reflect the light a lot more than the rest of the plastic on the kit. But when top coated, they may be unnoticeable. Definitely an interesting set of stickers. So last up in here then we've got the composite weapon Shekina. Now every now and then a kit comes out where one of the accessories completely steals the show. It makes the box worth it just for the accessory, and this is one right here. This is so much better quality than the rest of the kit, it's funny. The color separation here is very, very good, it looks fantastic, and this is one of the most badass Gundam weapons I have ever seen. This is shooting right to the top of my list. So just to do this weapon justice right here, I'm going to read out the blurb about it from the Gundam Wiki. So the composite weapon Shekina combines 3 different weapons into one piece of equipment. A giant Gatling gun, a mega beam launcher, and a micro missile launcher. With this weapon's versatility, the Pale Rider Cavalry can handle various combat situations, from close-range engagements that command high mobility to long-range shelling. On the bottom we got the Gatling, which is very nicely sculpted, and about this what it says on the wiki is, mounted on the bottom of the Shekina, this multi-barreled rotary cannon has a high firing rate. The main body of this is the Mega Beam Launcher, and what it says here is a Mega Particle Cannon mounted on the Shekina. It fires a high output particle beam that can easily penetrate enemies' armor. And finally we've got the Micro Missile Launcher. You do need to part separate this to show it with the open hatches, and what it says about this on the wiki is, mounted on the top of the Shekina, it fires volleys of micro missiles. Without a doubt, one of the most badass Gunpla weapons I've ever seen. As for the way it attaches, first off we've got what looks to be some kind of power supply that attaches onto the side skirting armor. The way the arm attaches into the Shekina is quite fantastic. Just like with the heavy Gundam, it attaches onto the forearm like so. The hand holds onto a handle inside of it, and then you can close this hatch down. You then finally connect it all together with the wire, which also works as a sort of support to deal with the weight of this thing. Absolutely awesome accessory right here. Once again, the box is worth it for this. So finally onto the articulation, and build-wise, so far I've had absolutely no issues with loose parts or loose limbs whatsoever. The neck is your typical giggity goo polycap neck joint, which is 2 ball joints. So there it is, looking all the way up, looking all the way down, and side to side. Polycap joint in the torso to the shoulder is aligned moving to the back, which is a little unusual. So when the arm is attached, it can move back ever so slightly like this. It is a ball joint, so you got a bit of a shoulder roll here. Then we've got full 360-degree spin, and there it is all the way up and all the way down. The elbow is double jointed and bends up as much as you could ever need a, well, elbow to bend. And we've got a standard ball joint for the wrist. Inside the waist then, it's one of those standard polycap balls. So if you move this up slightly, you can get a little bit of an ab crunch, a little bit of side to side, but nothing really. That's just kind of forcing something out of it. Besides that though, we've got the full 360-degree spin. Down to the skirting, the front skirting is your generic ball joint front skirting. Side skirting's generic too, so that is up and down, forward and back spin. And we've got a standard, non-premium butt flap. Inside the waist unit, we've got one of those hip joints that moves ever so slightly to the front and back, rotating on an axis. As for the kicks then, a very good kick up to the front, a not so great kick out to the back, and it can fairly, well, pull off the splits fairly well. Full spin at the upper thigh, double jointed bend at the knee, which is okay, not great. Getting that foot on the ground to test the ankle, and there it is all the way to the front and back. To the front is a little bit blocked, quite good out to the back, and the side to side is about average. So yeah, the general words used throughout all of this right now was average, generic, and that's exactly what it is. This is about par for high-grade posability, and you'll get pretty much every pose that you want out of it, just nothing over the top. So anyway, that right there is it for the review, and this is a hard one to rank. To me, this would be, in general, silver tier gunpla level. Everything is about as average as it could be, except for two things. One, the color separation is pretty much arse, which means the shield is bad, the body is bad, there's a ton of stickers it needs, and if you really want this to look good, you will have to paint it, definitely. However, on the other side of things entirely, the Shekinah combined weapon system is one of the coolest accessories I have ever seen in a Gundam kit, and this has killer color separation and nice molding and brilliant parts. It just looks phenomenal. So does this make up for the fact that the color separation on the actual mobile suit is not that great? That is up to you to decide. So I would say this kit is silver tier if you let that accessory make up for the fact that the color separation could be better. But if you want to be a complete stickler about this kit, it would be bronze tier. The color separation just is not up to spec, but if you want to paint your kit, all of the detail is there, and once finished, it will look phenomenal. Anyway, if you want one of your own, link down there in the description. You can get yours through BUYEE. I did. And as always, I will see you next time. As always, thank you so much for watching. These videos would not be possible without you guys watching these videos, so thank you once again. And special thanks, of course, to those of you who are supporting me on Patreon and over on the channel memberships, including Van Fawn, Tyler Sanders, Sean T, Mr. Winter, Lauren Seahack, Joseph Kukluk, Global Frequency Studios, Caleb Engelhardt, Bakito Official, and Craig Jerry.